going to start this month's SPP Ambassadors meeting, and we're going to be focusing on Scope 3. It's a very exciting topic as well. So we should cover antitrust very briefly, so we're not going to be talking about anything necessarily that's too concerning, but do be aware of what you're saying and what you're putting in the chat, because we do obviously have to apply to all competition laws. So what we're going to do, we're going to be very quickly going through what the Sustainable Procurement Pledge is to all of you that are joining, and welcome to many of you that are joining us for the first time. We've got some very quick announcements about the progress of the SPP. We're then going to be getting into the meat of it, which is really what does Scope 3 mean for procurement, and there's plenty of content around Scope 3 will be launched over the coming months. Delighted to be joined by Kelly and Lenny and Laura, who've no doubt been very patient as we try to get everyone into this room, so thank you. And then we will be doing a little bit of networking at the end, so you can meet your peers. Can I ask you, if you're there, and I hope you are, to give us a bit of a quick backstory as to what is the SPP, why it exists?
All right, Bertrand, are you there?
Or Thomas, I don't mind.
I am here. I see you on the photo, my dear.
That's good.
So maybe this is the day where we can also share with you that after 2 years of launching SPP for the first time, 3 weeks ago, we met. So we finally met. We are not only half of a page on the computer, we have met physically, and we spent 2 days hard working in the Netherlands. Windy day, allowing us to stay into the room and to work a lot on everything that we have managed the last 2 years and where we want to go for the next period of time. So it was extremely important to finally be together and work on behalf of everybody being in the call today. And maybe we can go to the next page behind the photo, where for everybody being here in the call, we have started 2 years ago by a commitment on the pledge, as you can see on LinkedIn and all the www.spp.earth. And we have a huge number of SPP ambassadors across countries that you can read, and also definitely very important. And this has been reconfirmed during that session of 2 days, that 73% of the decisions that we are taking are being influenced by SPP into the sustainability agenda that ambassadors are driving. And I think this is quite important to mention it. And what's very important is that the diversity that we have into SPP of procurement leaders and practitioners, but also of different people coming from even academies, students, and different industries are at the core of what we are. And this is why it is so important to continue on the content, as we will share today, as also to continue to grow and to impact on real decisions. So the purpose, the vision, the strategy, and the goals, we stick to it. We are procurement, and we are all embedded into the responsibilities across the supply chain. And one motto is sustainability in supply chain. We are building and we are executing for delivering a sustainable future for people and for planet. So remember, and this is what drives us, by 2030, all supply chain across the world will have completely embedded sustainable procurement. In other words, empower and equip all people in procurement, today's managers, future managers. This is the agenda that we drive, and we encourage leadership to enable that. And very, very important aside, 75% of everything we do is impacted, and we will be 1 million of procurement professionals taking decisions together on that agenda by 2030. And reconfirmed and definitely actively managed. And if you go on spp.earth, you will see the numbers of challenges that we have initiated over the last 18 months, thanks to all of you. And you can also see a new chapter that we have initiated, the famous chapters, countries and topics. And this is fundamental to gain in scope, in speed, and in depth.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Excellent. So that is what we are. So 2 years working with two fine CPOs who sparked this inspiration 2 years ago. A wonderful volunteer team that's been built up. We've got through technical challenges and challenges around content and websites and everything else. And as I said, we've grown up as an organisation. We are now a genuine formal organisation and non-profit looking for a lot of help. But one of the things that's been clear across the last 2 years is that you as procurement professionals need help to make this easy to understand how to embed sustainability and responsibility into procurement. So there's 4 things that you've highlighted to us that you need help on. You don't know necessarily what to do. You don't know what tools to use, what information to apply, what contract clauses, what guidance, what specific platforms, whatever it may be. If you do know what to do and you know how to do it, sometimes it can be difficult to get the confidence to do it because you've never met anyone who's done it or done it wrong. And that's really what the networking and the collaboration with you as a global community across 140 countries is about. And finally, even if you know what to do, how to do it, and you've met people that have done it and you've got the ideas of how to do it, your boss might not let you. So we're really also about helping and engaging leadership, engaging the many CPOs that are here and are part of this initiative to really empower the organization and let it happen. So that's really what we are about. So we are now, as many of you know, wanting entire organizations to join the SPP. We are growing rapidly with individual procurement professionals, and to get to 1 million, we want entire procurement organizations to join us. So we've launched SPP Champions, and around the sort of start of next year, 2022, probably towards the end of January, we'll be announcing our first tranche of organizations whose entire procurement professional team will be joining the SPP, joining the pledge, and will be coordinated into initiatives, groups, platforms, subgroups, chapters, tools to really get what they need as an organization. So if you are interested in becoming a champion, and the procurement leaders will be joining, can you believe it, a champions league, we're calling it, to ultimately drive that from a leadership perspective, we would love to have you involved. So do get in touch with us. You can contact us at champions@spp.earth. We'll be helping to onboard your team onto the pledge. We'll be obviously helping you to profile the fact that you champion sustainable procurement. And of course, we will be looking for a donation to the organization so that we can upgrade our Zoom license and actually get more than 100 people in at any one time. So indeed, we will always want your help. So if you are interested, do get in touch. As I said, we're very excited about the sorts of organizations that are already committing to this, and we're very excited to be announcing that in the coming months. So please do get in touch. Another update, a very exciting update, and it bodes well that when you can only get 100 people into a Zoom call in December, that you're planning a 24-hour World Sustainable Procurement Day in March, where we will be running sessions right across the globe during the equinox, believe it or not, starting in Australia and finishing probably in California, where we will be covering global sustainable procurement topics, and we want you to be involved. If you've got an idea for a session, for an hour session, or a topic, or you want to support the global regional versions of the SPP or the industry versions of the SPP or the topic versions of the SPP, like Scope 3, do get in touch with us. As I said, you can contact the SPP in a number of different ways, but please do get in touch if you feel you can support this extraordinary day. We're incredibly ambitious, despite being a volunteer group, and we thought 24-hour Zoom calls back to back, covering every topic in the globe on sustainable procurement was a wonderful idea. And I still think it's a wonderful idea, although I will need a lot of coffee to get through it. But we do want you to get involved. So please let us know your ideas and your suggestions and put this date in your diary. So another plea for help. Desiree, are you there? Can you help us?
I am. Hello. I was allowed back in after like 100th time. Yeah, no, thank you for fixing it, Ollie. So hello everybody, and super excited to see over 200 people in the room. Yay! So just to let you know that we are currently recruiting, not just for our co-chairs for our chapters, but also our steering team. As you can imagine, the work is definitely increasing, and because we are all volunteers, we cannot do everything, not enough hours in the day, as much as we'd love to. So us in the capacity building team, currently it's just myself and my colleague Marco, and we are really needing help and support in delivering the best in-class content for our SPP ambassador community. And so specifically what we've looked at what we need to do, and we currently have 3 positions open. So we're looking for 2 people to help us with really kind of the desk research in terms of working the networks, understanding, you know, all of those kind of things that are really out there that are fantastic, that we feel that our SPP ambassador community would really benefit from. So it's the curators of the content that goes onto the SPP website. And then the other position is we want to launch a podcast called Ambassadors on Stage. And Ambassadors on Stage is an opportunity for our SPP ambassadors to share their personal stories. What did they do? How did they go about it? What were the lessons learned? What went well? What didn't? So a real meaningful conversation to really help inspire and encourage our procurement colleagues across the world. And the other piece is also the experts advice. So these are short interviews, quick fire rounds of just quick engagements on specific topics, guidance, advice, and those would then also go onto the website and be shared with the community. So a lot more information is available on the website. And also, if you'd like more information, recruitment@spp.earth. We really look forward to receiving your applications and hearing from you. And any questions, please do let us know. Thank you.
And I think we can all vouch for how good it is to be part of a team, this team. We've only met once in Amsterdam, and yet we're all good friends, and it is phenomenal. Yeah. So yeah, if anyone does have a little bit of time they want to give to the group, please do get in touch. And working with Desiree and Marco is an absolute joy, I can confirm. Marco, are you there, Marco? Can you share a little bit about the Scope 3 chapter and challenge we're launching today and the content that's on the website?
I don't think he is with us today, okay. Unfortunately. I think he had
that's fine. I can cover that. So
yeah, go for it.
Well, Marco and Desiree and the team have put together a phenomenal overview of Scope 3, content, knowledge and tools. So every 2 months, we launch a new challenge. We need to launch a new thing that will hopefully overcome those reasons why you as a pledge ambassador can't achieve your pledge. So what is it? I don't understand what Scope 3 means. How do I embed it into what we do? So today's content will hopefully be a start of that. But the website is now full of great tools, great knowledge and great content, all tailored for procurement professionals. So do go to spp.earth. You can put it now, have it up, look at it, join, engage, tell us what you think. There's stuff for the basics in there, and there's stuff for more advanced stuff. There's very, very practical things like contract clauses you can literally cut and paste and put into your work. There's really practical stuff. So do get involved, do get in touch, and do let us know what you think of it. And on that note, we are also very delighted as we try to scale and cope with the number of people that want to join the Sustainable Procurement Pledge to launch our chapters. Now, chapters are like mini SPPs, covering industries, covering issues and covering regions. And I am especially delighted, as I caretake this particular chapter as well, to introduce Eric and Claudia, who've been interviewed and recruited kindly in as co-chairs of the new Scope 3 chapter. So Claudia, Eric, can I ask you to introduce yourselves?
Claudia, ladies first.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Thank you, Oliver. I'm also happy that I'm in the call. I had some issues the first 10 minutes and I thought, oh my God.
Oh, you're telling me, Claudia, trust me, I had more issues than you did.
That's great. So as Oliver was saying, so we are launching the Scope 3 chapter, and we are looking for people to join us in our team. And just to give you a little bit of an introduction of who you would be working with, my name is Claudia Stijlen. My nationality is Dutch. I'm from the Netherlands. I currently live in Jordan. I work as an ESG reporting consultant at Hikma Pharmaceuticals, and I have a background in Shell. I've worked for Shell for 15 years. I might have some colleagues on the line, ex-colleagues. And I'm really looking forward for people joining our team. I think, I'm not sure the next slide made it, but we'll give you a flavor of what we're looking at. We really only literally just started. So we're running a survey now to figure out what kind of topics people feel most passionate about, and to give us some direction as to where we should be going. But before we go there, Eric, would you mind introducing yourself as well?
Yeah, thanks, Claudia. So a few words about me. So my name is Eric. I'm a Swiss and French national living close from Geneva. And I've got almost 30 years background in the industry, chemical industry. at Ajinomoto, Saint-Gobain, and then Firmenich, now acting as a consultant. And I'm very, very excited to launch this Scope 3 chapter together with Claudia. And I can elaborate on what Claudia said. Yes, we need you guys. We need you to help us in order to make sure that we can bring some support to the organizations, and we can become the type of source of truth from a Scope 3 standpoint. So welcome on board to everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric and Claudia. And as also, just to mention, in the chat is the link for the survey. You don't have to complete it now, guys, but I would ask you to click on it now. So you've got it open. You can complete it later. Don't complete it while our speakers are talking, because that's very rude. But we do want you to complete it later, because any insight you can give us as a procurement professional wanting to navigate what Scope 3 is about, that's very important. So Claudia and Eric, very briefly, if you wouldn't mind just covering the elements of what you've got planned.
Yeah, okay, so thanks Oliver. So long story short, we have started to work on a project charter with Claudia. This charter is just what is coming from the top of our mind. Long story short, what we are aiming to do with the Scope 3, as said, is to be a source of inspiration. We need to provide access to some knowledge, to some toolbox, to some expertise to the whole SPP community. And in order to do so, we have set up a type of high-level plan, which is first starting with building on the fundamentals, creating the core team, and then progressively over the next 4 quarters, be able to connect on a regular basis with the community, with the outcome of our thoughts, of our ideas, and all the knowledge that we have collected. In terms of team, we would like to have more than 2 people in the team, meaning Claudia and myself. So you are warmly welcome to support us either on the management team of the chapter, I would say, and we would meet on a regular basis, or as participant to bring ideas, to participate to the webinars, to share experiences, so on and so forth.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. Anything to add, Claudia?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add is that I guess in the procurement world, especially Scope 3 is about collaboration, and it goes across organizational boundaries. So I think it would be very interesting to have a discussion with a team of people or with SPP ambassadors to see how we can basically move across those organizational boundaries and really share that knowledge and that passion and energy to find solutions, because in the end, I think a solution is very likely being worked on by different partners in the value chain. So I think that's a very particular challenge in this chapter that is going to be a very interesting discussion as well, that people get to work on.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Eric, Claudia. It's lovely to meet you. It's been great working with you so far. So the SPP now has effectively a subgroup on Scope 3. That means you can get even more focused support and advice. So do get in touch with Claudia and Eric. There's plenty of content and knowledge coming. I actually also chair, as well as the Sustainable Procurement Pledge meetings, I also chair a thing called the Scope 3 Peer Group, which is something separate, which is mainly for sustainability professionals. And we talk a lot in that meeting, there's about 500 of us meet regularly, about how to engage procurement. What are the challenges for getting procurement on side and helping to fit it into the million things that need to do? So welcome to all those members that generally join me on that call. Bringing sustainability and procurement together today is really exciting. There is a session coming up on the 15th of December. If anyone's interested in free net zero training developed by Cambridge University and BSR, there is a session on the 15th of December to work out how you can share that training with your tail end suppliers on net zero. So it's all free. Look in the chat for that link. So I think we've almost caught up on time. I just wanted to highlight, there are many of you probably joining who may not know what Scope 3 emissions are. You will get an opportunity to learn about this over the next coming months, and do go to spp.earth. One thing that we are likely to be focusing on today, and indeed in the Scope 3 chapter, is particularly purchased goods and services. So the emissions from your purchased goods and services. And you'll see this diagram on the website to explain what Scope 3 emissions are. And of course, we can't really cover all of that today, but there's plenty of content and knowledge on spp.earth, and the Scope 3 chapter will be helping to demystify some of this. But for those that are really advanced and progressing on this and doing lots of cool stuff and looking at emissions factors and carbon footprints of products and all sorts of stuff, there'll be stuff for you as well, because it's something for everyone here. Okay, now 5 minutes over, not bad going, considering that we started a bit late. Whew. Right, now we get to the meat of it. We're delighted to be joined by not just good friends of the SPP, but good friends of mine. Delighted to be joined by Kelly, Eleni, and Laura, 3 people who are doing some magnificent stuff, not just on Scope 3, but on sustainable procurement. For those of you that joined us a year and a half ago when Kelly was one of our speakers, I know you all enjoyed that session. It was one of the most popular ones we'd ever had. So I'm delighted to have Kelly back as well, but also joined by Eleni, who has wonderful experience, again, in the NHS in the UK, which is a procurement beast in itself. And I'm also delighted to be joined by Laura from Solvay, who Solvay had done some fantastic work on this. I was part of their supplier engagement day a few months ago, which was absolutely fascinating. One of the best supplier engagement programs I've seen, engaging not just suppliers, but engaging buyers as well, and driving not just knowledge, but actually collaboration on projects and ideas and innovations as well. So Kelly, Eleni, and Laura, are you there? Please tell me you are. I'm presuming.
I'm here, Oliver.
Yes, that's right.
I'm also
Eleni?
here. I'm also here.
Excellent.
And I'm here too.
Excellent. Well, I will get rid of this screen and we'll have you talk about this yourselves. So I'm going to start with you, Kelly and Eleni, and put the first question to you, but Laura, please do chip in. So I guess the question is quite simple. What can procurement do on Scope 3? What is it that procurement can do to make well, emissions reduction happen in the supply chain? What have you learned?
What have we learned? A fantastic question. And as you pointed out, it's been 18 months since we had this public conversation again. So we can kind of tell you a little bit about how we've progressed. So when you ask the question, what can procurement do for Scope 3? It's a little bit backwards. Procurement is Scope 3. So when we look at it as Roche, our Scope 3 category 1 and 2 as a pharmaceutical company is the majority. It's over 90% of our greenhouse gas footprint. And what we do with Scope 3, you know, this is about our relationships with our suppliers. So it belongs, I think, with procurement to actually drive the reductions. We have the market knowledge, we have the relationships, and we're able to see what solutions are coming. So that's been a bit of the core of why we as procurement are driving the Scope 3 strategy for Roche. We're the ones who have the access and can actually create action to go beyond just reporting.
Great. And Eleni, anything to add to that?
And if I can just add my 2 pence as well to what Kelly has said, she described it really, really well, actually. For me, procurement really needs to empower itself to become relevant. So I think I will give you an analogy. If we see this as scaling a mountain, I think a lot of people are aware that there is significant impacts in our supply chains, and we know that this is really big. But I think what I'd like to share in terms of practical experience from Roche today is that it's really important to do 3 things. First of all, to identify the height of that particular mountain. You know, how big is it? And that's something that we've done. We've carried out an inventory of our greenhouse gas emissions, focusing on category 1 and 2, as you said, because it is important for us and for the rest of the company to be able to understand exactly how big that mountain is. How high is it? How much do we have to climb? And that has done 3 things for us. It's helped put procurement on the map, because we have data and evidence that can support what we're saying. When we say it's really big, and our Scope 3 emissions are really big, and this is why, and this is the evidence behind it. It's been a fantastic way of sensitizing people to this, because as soon as you start comparing your direct emissions versus your indirect emissions, people start to listen. They start thinking, oh, hang on a second, I thought this was really big, but now you're giving me something that is even bigger. So people are becoming sensitized just by seeing that evidence and that set of data, if you like. And it also helps prioritize and focus action. So those 3 things are really significant in terms of identifying the scale of the challenge. But we know now how tall the mountain is. We now need to know and identify the tools, the equipment that will help us scale it. And with that, we've done a number of different activities, a number of different projects. But most of the work that we're doing in this area, I think I would probably summarize again in 3 different groups. Projects, be it with our suppliers, be it collaborating on specific products that our suppliers provide, or in getting some data from them and building an even more kind of representative baseline and inventory of emissions. There's a bit about strategy, so understanding how we can act strategically to reduce the Scope 3 emissions, and there's a bit about governance, and that is about giving procurement more of a decision-making role within the organization beyond deciding what you can buy, but actually influencing the organization. And within that sphere, we've got a governance body within Roche that helps us promote this agenda, the Supply Chain Sustainability Council, that kind of owns and oversees this agenda. And then the third element for me is that of, okay, so we know how big the mountain is, we know what equipment we need to scale it. And the third aspect is, how do we bring others on our journey with us? How do we convince other people to climb with us? What do they need? And for me, and that's something that I should have probably said in the beginning that sorry, I've got a bit of feedback.
That's all right. You always do with this number of people.
Okay.
If anyone could mute that isn't muted, that'd be great.
Thank you. What is really unique that I've seen in Roche compared to all of the other companies that I've worked for in the past, I've been with Roche for 8 months now, so I'm quite new to the company, is that there is an amazing way to include people by sharing the goal and sharing the objective. So procurement has set itself, and over the last year, we've had a target as a procurement function, as a global procurement function, we've had a target and a goal for succeeding in this area. That will affect our pay, our bonuses. And that has made it so much more relevant. So everybody's now kind of coming together and saying, oh, hang on a second, you said this is really big and this is how we can scale it. And now it matters to me because my bonus will be affected. So all of these 3 things together for me add to the success of making procurement relevant, procurement making itself relevant, not expecting to be brought into the discussion by somebody else, but saying, hey, hang on a second, we know this, we've got this, and we can manage it. It is within our gift to manage it. And obviously, as we kind of carry on with the discussion, I might share some snippets about what's on our heads for next steps, but I'll leave it at that at the moment.
Excellent. No,
and if I can just add on to one final point, Eleni got me excited again. We're actually giving the business data and strategy to make these decisions. And what we found is when you can simplify that complex mountain and say, hey, you want to buy this, and you can also do this good thing with it. Or we can, we're starting to think about how we formulate our products and reformulate it with this Scope 3 information. So really bringing all of the pieces together, but showing business value, making it not just something that this group does or this group does, but really this is how we do business. Sustainability is a part of it.
Excellent, excellent. And I do want to bring Laura in, and one point I think you raised, Eleni, I think is really important, and I think it's been highlighted in the SPP, is yes, this is about people and planet, but this is about the procurement profession. And there are no more strategic goals in business at the moment than climate change, net zero goals. And it's an opportunity for procurement to align itself with incredibly strategic goals and give it the reputation it deserves. Procurement getting the respect it deserves, I think. For doing that. I thought that was a really good point. Laura, from your perspective, what can procurement do? What have you seen procurement doing that can really help you at Solvay? If you're there. Perhaps you're not there. Perhaps you've solved it with procurement. That's fine. That's fine. Well, I'm going to come on to another topic, which is supplier engagement. So this is, as I said, the importance of engaging procurement and making it easy for them is one thing, but actually successfully engaging suppliers and actually fitting this into communications and conversations and so on is tricky. So Kelly, Eleni, from your perspective, what have you done that's been really successful in terms of engaging suppliers and helping your procurement to weave it into their ways of working with suppliers? What sort of things have you been doing?
I think to start with, the things we've been doing is we're working with partners and suppliers who already have an interest in the space. So where we can make it a collaboration, we both jump in as mature partners. That's one of our focuses for strategic, but we're also making our programs on a gradient. Not all of our suppliers are at the same level. So for some of them, it's incredible just to be able to measure their scope 1 and 2 footprint. And that is a big advance. On others that are big, they have even more maturity program or more developed maturity than we do. And so we're learning. So what we're doing is actually making it a business conversation. And we have segmented our supplier base to know where those most valuable conversations are going to happen. And Eleni has been involved in a lot of these, so I will turn the rest of the answer over to her.
Such a good double act.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. And I think I'd just like to pick up on your point that it is significant to know, to identify again, who do we want to speak to and how, what language do we use when we speak to different parts of our supply chain. And the program that we've started, that we piloted over the last few months, has been approaching those kind of the strategic suppliers that we have within Roche to understand a little bit about what kind of data we could exchange, what kind of data could be relevant and important to us that they have, that they can share with us, that would help us jointly work on specific projects that can ultimately lead to what we want to achieve, which is reduction, right? So all of this is because we want to reduce the footprint, not just because we want to have data. So the pilot was really successful, and we've now launched a kind of global program. And as Kelly said, we've segmented our suppliers and we've identified about 100 odd companies that we are approaching in this way. And the understanding is that we will be very focused and targeted on the level of discussion and the types of questions, the types of topics that we want to explore with them at kind of horizontally, if you like, and also be flexible and outcome focused. So the idea is, again, to focus on how we can drive those reductions. We want to identify the right KPIs that can help us track performance, because, you know, it'd be good to be able to track performance in terms of sustainability in this area. And also it will be useful to identify those standout examples, those opportunities that we can work together with different suppliers and drive better practices. And I'm forever impressed and amazed, in awe is the best way to describe this. Whenever I've worked in sustainable procurement for the last 17 years, and I've always been impressed with the fact that you can put a simple statement, a simple challenge out there to a big market, and you will have as many invitations and you put out on the same statement, you'll have as many responses back, and they will all be very different. So when we go into our discussions with our suppliers, we set the same problem statement, and we have very different responses. And that is absolutely exciting because you have all of these different perspectives and all of these different opportunities, and it helps us as well recalibrate what we want to achieve with a particular relationship. It's all about, for me, it's all about being focused. It's being about flexible, and it's about your outcome to be your main objective rather than a process that is set within an organization. So those three things for me are quite significant in terms of engaging with suppliers.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm going to ask if Laura is there, if she's still there. You look like you were there on the chat, so I'm guessing you're there. Maybe you're muted, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just on delay for you, I don't know. But if you are there, pipe up. But I just wondered, there's a good question here from Sandhya. Can you share the metrics as suppliers of different levels in their supplier journey? So have you got a sense of how mature your different suppliers are? Is there a real breadth? Is there some that, and do you deal with suppliers differently depending on their levels of maturity?
So if I can just jump in, because I saw those questions in the chat. And first, when we segment the suppliers, it's not on their maturity, it's on their impact. So what percentage of our scope 3 footprint is coming from them, from what we know already from our data. Then we have a conversation with our suppliers to determine where they're at in the level of maturity. Some suppliers, it's easy. You can go to their websites and understand exactly what their greenhouse gas and their environmental programs are, what they have done. They're often self-reporting. And then we have other suppliers that have never even done their footprint. So there's a big variety of that. And so when we look to segment them, and I think this is important, it's based on impact, because we're really looking for reduction at the end. a lot of what we had seen up until the past couple of years in scope 3 was measure and report, measure and report. Oh, isn't this great? But it actually doesn't change the world. And what we want to do is look at impact to change the world and make those reductions.
Excellent, excellent. Another good question coming in. Can you share the methodology of how you calculated the emissions of suppliers? Did you use spend-based methodology, etc.? And if so, what databases did you use? This is the eternal question of spend versus emissions factors versus primary data, and this data hole of a question we could dive into forever. But what sort of experience have you had there?
Well, on this one, I am going to hand tag Eleni, and I saw her unmuting herself because she knew I was going to.
Thank you. I thought you might do that, Kelly. Thank you. So yes, the short answer is that, as you said, Oliver, there are broadly two different ways that you can do this. One is quite specific on or reliant on your spend decisions, and the other one will be coming up from a kind of a product based and materials based perspective. They both have the pros and cons. We've gone for a spend based approach, and we recognize that it has got limitations and that it is price sensitive, but we feel that it's a good balance between understanding where the biggest hotspots are so that we can begin to tackle them. We can invest loads and loads of time in having a very granular and very detailed analysis of our footprint and emissions, but actually we prefer to focus on acting, which is why we've gone down that route. We recognize the caveats, and we just want to have a broad brush kind of picture of where our biggest impacts are, and then focus on reducing them. So I hope that answers the question, but please do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's been a big part of the Scope 3P group that I've been running for 2 years, is this realization that the search for accuracy, the paralysis of analysis, this search for this accuracy of this number to get this number perfect is getting in the way of making the number go down. We need trajectory. We need ultimately those emissions to drop, the costs to be saved, the risk to drop, rather than spending all of our time worrying whether we've got exactly the right number. And that is, I think, certainly a vibe that I think is very true across the whole industry. Laura, I think you're there. Oh, come on, you can't say you're there and then not be there. Well, whilst Laura's hopefully coming back to us, I would say that, as I said, a little bit of a story about what Solvay have been doing, and I'm part of experiencing this. Solvay launched a supplier engagement day, and in fact they were doing a number of different days across a range of different sustainability topics, and I was invited to come and chair that session with that. They put on a phenomenal session, and the reason why I thought it was phenomenal, when it was a Zoom call that worked, and I was on it, it was amazing, but they actually managed to not just get suppliers in the room, and a lot of them, they brought the buyers into the room. And they didn't just bring them into the room to listen to people, they actually got them working together. And to have this, whether it's in a Zoom call or metaphorically, I suppose, more long-term, buyers and suppliers actually working together to discuss what was happening and what could be possible. So the first thing that struck me about that is educating buyers and suppliers together is a really powerful way to do that. I remember dropping myself into the breakout rooms during this supplier engagement day and hearing buyers and suppliers sitting there going, how are we going to do this? What could we do? What ideas have we got? How might we work this out together? And that was really exciting to sort of see that happening. The second thing I thought was really impressive about the supplier engagement day, and I think this is true across all Scope 3 conversations, is think of it as a value chain. So Procter & Gamble were in the room, and they were talking about why it was important for Solvay's suppliers to be giving Solvay data and insight onto what they're doing so they could give it to Procter & Gamble. And I think telling the story as a value chain and as potentially as a value web is very important, because that helps your supply chain understand why you need data and what you're trying to do it for. And that was really impressive. There was huge engagement around Procter & Gamble there. So I thought that was very exciting. The final thing. Oh, there you are, Laura.
I'm back, Oliver. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened with the line.
That's all right. Was I doing a good job? I think I'm starting to. Over to you.
Okay, so I didn't know exactly what you said about our supplier engagement program, but let me present it briefly. So we started the journey about a year ago, and the aim of this program was really to foster sustainability innovation from our supplier and create shared value with them. So practically, we kicked off the program. The first event was on April. We called that the Inspiration Day, where we had the chance to have inspiring speeches from our CEO, CPO, but also from external speakers such as Peter Baker, for example, who is the president of World Business Council. And so the purpose of this first event was to inspire our suppliers and also raise their awareness on Solvay objectives linked to what we call Solvay One Planet, which is actually our sustainability roadmap. So it was a great success. This first event, we gathered 250 suppliers from 130 companies. And as you mentioned, we also invited all our buyers community to the event. And then in June, we had the second event of the program, so the workshops, which you participated. And indeed, so it was interactive workshops linked on different sustainability topics for procurement. And here we had human rights and social impact in the supply chain, diversity, equity and inclusion, waste valorization, circular economy, and of course, reduction of the carbon footprint of our supply chain. So our suppliers were invited to choose one or several workshops, and of course all the buyers were also invited, since the objective of the program is really to foster sustainability dialogues between our buyers and their counterparties, the suppliers. And to support this program, we also launched a collaborative platform where we ask our suppliers to submit collaborative ideas or best practice linked to the 5 sustainability topics of procurement. And currently we have about 500 people who have access to this platform, and everything is on open source, because the idea of the program is also only not to foster ideas and collaborations between Solvay and its suppliers, but also among the whole supplier community. I mean, what we want is collectively to raise the bar on sustainability topics and on Scope 3 in particular. And that's why we also asked to our suppliers who were willing to do so to showcase their best practice in front of the others during the workshop. And actually that led to a very dynamic and interactive sessions. And then right after the workshops, we sent to all suppliers what we call a call for collaborative projects. So where we asked them to submit concrete, innovative projects linked to the sustainability topics. And here again, I have to say it was a great success. We received about 70 different projects, with 30 of them linked to climate and CO2 reduction. So now we are in the phase where we are selecting and assessing the feasibility of those projects. And to do so, we are also engaging with all our internal stakeholders, such as the industrial function, R&D people, marketing and sales. Because again, it's not only about procurement engaging with their supplier, but it's really Solvay as a whole who wants to raise the bar and engage with the suppliers. And then the last step of this one-year program will be a ceremony in March next year, and then we will award the best project that were proposed. So all in all, I would say a quite ambitious program, but that really reflects our ambition with our supplier. And I think at Solvay, we're really at the turning point where procurement is starts really to look differently. It's moving from buying to really building together with our suppliers.
Excellent. Excellent. And as I said, I'm conscious of time, but if anyone wants to know what a good supplier engagement program and day looks like, please do get in touch with Laura, because it was genuinely good. It had procurement engagement, it had CPO engagement, it had your customers engaged, P&G, it had collaboration, genuine collaboration around, we don't know how to do this, how are we going to do it? But then also you had this opportunity for your suppliers to suggest innovations and ideas and turn it into a positive thing. And I'm genuinely very impressed. So do get in touch with Laura. I do want to pick up one question, and I'm conscious of time, for all of you actually, that was raised, which I think is a key one, is how do you engage your suppliers to engage their suppliers? So how do you look to start to get to the Scope 3 of your Scope 3? So Lenny, Kelly, what experience have you had of trying to get to that cascading effect of information and data?
Again, I think it depends on the supplier type. And I think one of the things that maybe I missed in this is setting the scale of what a pharmaceutical supply chain is. So the simple example is one of our marquee products that Roche sells for cancer. It has 126 components and a supply chain that is 10 tiers deep. So when we're talking about scope 3 footprint and scale and how we measure, it's massive. But again, what we're doing is targeting suppliers who we can partner with, who are willing to come on this journey. And then those conversations about how we get to their suppliers are much easier, because we find that a lot of the products or the ideas we have put out there are connected. One of our pilots was in the UK, getting suppliers onto 100% renewable energy. This was very cross-divisional, very massive, and something that it was easy for all of the suppliers to see the benefit on, and then also talk about that with theirs. But again, it depends on the level of maturity. If we're working with a very small startup company who's just learning to measure greenhouse gas, then it's hard for them to think about their supply chain. But as a mature company with some experience in this, we're there to help. Scope 3 is not proprietary, and it has to be collaborative if we really want to change things. Eleni, did I miss anything?
No, I think you've covered everything, and it just I just wanted to strengthen the point and kind of continue on your point of being able to have the right discussions with the right parties. There is no point pushing for scope 3 transparency from a supplier that is very, very small, where we buy very little from. Their leverage on their scope 3 emissions is limited. So it's about having the right discussion on the right topic with the right suppliers. And what we found was that in some cases, a lot of our strategic suppliers, for example, are, I would say, peers. And we're all, to some degree, learning from each other in some cases on this journey. And there have been certainly certain aspects of our journey that we've been able to share, and that has, I believe, benefited our suppliers in terms of beginning to understand how they can start tackling their scope 3 emissions. And what is really, really interesting is I'm absolutely amazed by the fact that we are getting approaches from suppliers, big strategic suppliers of ours, who are coming from the perspective of seeing this as a value chain impact. So recognizing that what they sell to us is also their impact, and that if they want to reduce their value chain emissions, they need to work with us as a client to get that down. And obviously we have an interest in working with them as a supplier to get our emissions down as well. So it's becoming a little bit more of I think the narrative is changing, and it's becoming more of a collective impact. And how do we work on it together? And for me, that's an indication of the maturity of the discussion of the topic.
Absolutely. Very, very good points. Laura, anything to add on that? Are you looking at your scope 3 of your scope 3? That's probably not the right way to put it, but you know what I mean.
No, I have to say not yet. We're not at that level yet. No, I have to admit.
No, as I said, I think that's a real tricky one. That's tricky, and that's where collaboration can come in as well, I think, as well, again, with your peers and so on. Thank you to all of you. I just want to take a couple of points from you just now. It's almost like a couple of tips and advice. So if you're sitting on this call, you're in procurement, you've obviously been impressed, not by just yourselves, but obviously what you're hearing around and stuff that's happening. There's a bewildering array of information out there. What would be your sort of 2 or 3 pieces of advice, and perhaps where would you go to look? What tools, what platforms, what initiatives? Is there anything specific you think people should perhaps now Google or look up? I'm going to come to you first, Kelly.
Specific tools to look up for scope 3. I think there are an array of options on the market, and it depends, what's right for your company depends on the level of maturity and what you want to do. If you're just starting, then straight reporting tools can work. If you're a little bit more mature, then you're going to want something different. What Roche has found is we've developed a hybrid. So we have tools that we've built completely in-house. Our scope 3 dashboard that allows us to look across the company in real time and understand where those emissions peaks are, where we have opportunities. That was a tremendous activity to do, and it's great that we actually built it in-house, but I would say if you're starting your Scope 3 journey, that initial mapping of your landscape is one of the most valuable things. When Eleni mentioned earlier that part of our methodology came from a master's thesis student. That master's thesis student's research looked at one site and found unusual data. I think you may remember this one, Oliver, the cows. We had no idea that one of our biggest emissions in our manufacturing sites in Penzberg, Germany would be cattle. Roche doesn't buy cattle, but it was this question of what are we buying that really has a big emissions footprint that we know scientifically we can start acting on. That led us to that discovery, to the methodology. So I think it's depends on where your journey is. There's not one simple solution, but you have to start. And I think if you start with an interesting problem, even if it's something very small, you get your framework right, you get your methodology, and you scale up.
I'm so glad you mentioned the cows, because you're feeding them seaweed, or that's apparently the best thing to do for a cow.
No, there is a really great compound that's actually a feed additive that has been released. And we're talking about that and financing. I saw that come up into a chat question. So yeah.
Excellent, excellent. I didn't think we'd get through this, Kelly, without your talking about your cows.
Without my cows, I know. Yeah.
We do like your cows. Laura, anything to add to that? Any particular tools or templates or initiatives or things you think people should go and look at and consider? No. It's fine. It's fine. There are many initiatives. One thing I would recommend everyone to do is find out your industry collaboration. There is Scope 3 work streams happening in Together for Sustainability for Chemicals, the PSCI. There is the consumer goods work that's happening that AB InBev are doing. Manufacture 2030 are convening consumer products very well. There's lots of retail collaboration going on around Scope 3 at the moment, that particularly in the UK, there's a fantastic group. So each of these initiatives are really working together as an industry to find out what they can do together. So I highly recommend all of those. And as I said, there's plenty of stuff, plenty of platforms, plenty of tools, or arguably too much to navigate. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Eleni. Thank you, Kelly.